Hey guys, I hope all is well. So I really wanted to make a melee scavenger build that utilizes the Tawhoa's Felling Ascendancy that summons a level 20 Tawhoa's Chosen whenever I hit an enemy with a non-val slam or strike skill.
Hi!
That whole concept seemed very interesting to me and I wanted to see it in action because in my head I pictured a summon that would essentially double my damage by repeating my attack.
I'm here too!
And to me, that's exactly what it seems to be doing, and it does feel kind of awesome.
Super awesome.
Although I'm not 100% sure it's actually doubling my attack damage per se, but according to Path of Building, it's adding about 600k DPS, which is a nice healthy chunk of damage for sure. Now, I know this is only applicable to the Phrecia League, however, on the regular Ascendancies, if I were doing this on a new league, I definitely roll with the Ascendant's Berserker for the damage boost and free rage, and Warden for the extra tincture, which would insanely boost our damage. So, in choosing what melee skill to use, I wanted to roll off of the idea of a paladin-like character that uses a shield and sword, and I've narrowed my choices down to Infernal Blow, Viper Strike, and Heavy Strike. And as you can tell from the title of the video, I went with Heavy Strike. So what even is this skill? Literally no one plays it, and I haven't really seen too many builds that use it either, so I didn't have too much to go off of, so I decided to just take inspiration from Mathel's Infernal Blow dex stacking Scion, and so I made a Heavy Strike strength stacking Scavenger. So Heavy Strike does two things. It lowers the enemy's stun threshold, and it has a fairly decent implicit chance to deal double damage. At gem level 20 and 20% gem quality, it's at 59%. That plus a humble 5% chance to deal double damage from a timeless jewel on the tree, and 15% from a focus mod brings me to about 80% chance to deal double damage, which definitely feels much better in terms of consistency. So my plan was to pretty much run around and slap the hell out of things with my sword, which is literally what I do, and the simplicity of it is very satisfying, especially when packs of mobs explode into piles of gold thanks to my weapon effect.
So if you like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe, and let him know what you think of the build and video.
So as it currently stands, the build still has a long way to go. I'm currently just over 1000 strength, which is fairly low for a stat stacking build.
And he's not comfortable admitting this, but his single target isn't exactly where he wants it to be. So he's brought in the girls to come and be featured in some Val double strike action, each adding about 350,000 DPS.
And all in all, I'm only at about a humble like 6 million DPS and still building up my character. Other than that, the build is definitely clearing T16 maps rather smoothly and comfortably. I just have to avoid reflect maps and try to avoid a map that might have like no leech plus no regen plus less block plus less accuracy all at once.
Ew, what the hell is that even?
Yeah, that actually sounds awful. So yeah, I've got 80% attack block, about 80% fizz damage reduction, and 80% spell suppression. So I'm not dying too often, especially with the Scavenger's Cloak of Flames, 40% damage taken as Fire Ascendancy. I've also built heavily into crit, and I'm at about 99 to 100% crit chance with like 500 to 600 crit multi, and running around in rather humble gear more or less, and just having a lot of fun with the character. Alright, so here's the character, my Dark Paladin here. Got some pretty sick cosmetic gear, honestly. I'm really enjoying this like purple dark sword effect with like the celestial shield. It's pretty awesome. Anyways, for my gear, like I said, it's pretty like humble gear, honestly. Rebuke of the Vaal, just a really easy 900 to 1k flat DPS with some decent attack speeds, not bad. A shield with decent block chance and life, some res, definitely get strength on as much gear as possible. Of course, the 50% chance to deal double damage while focused. I am running the Crown of Eyes into Iron Fortress combo, which just means my spell damage also increases my attack damage as well, and Iron Fortress also gives me a ton of block chance and makes my strength damage bonus even greater, which also does tie back into Crown of Eyes because I also have Iron Will, which applies my strength damage bonus to spell damage as well. So this is giving me spell damage, and spell damage is being converted back into more attack damage, which is like really nice combo for a strength stacking build. And other than that, it's not too much. I have these gloves, which not too shabby, honestly. Spell suppression, fizz, attack speed, res, and I have socketed here my Vol double strike, so all of that gets +1. So this amulet's pretty nice. It's got disemboweling, which is just huge for damage. It's got a bunch of helpful stats, crit multi, percent armor for fizz damage reduction, some life, and a little bit of extra attack damage through the spell damage conversion. Of course, on my rings, I try to get as much strength as possible while also factoring in like res and a little bit of attack boost. This one doesn't have any life, unfortunately. It just rolled with the ES, which is whatever. This one is more along the lines of what I was mentioning just now. And for my boots, of course, spell suppression is huge on as much gear as possible. And then it's got a ton of life, res, movement speed, and 100% chance to avoid being chilled, which is really nice. And for my belt, it's nothing crazy at all, but I do think the 15% increased strength really does go a long way. And then it's just got some res and stats and some damage. That's about it. The gear is like literally nothing crazy. It's very doable, very achievable. The most expensive save obviously was the 6-link Crusader plate, which I linked myself. I just bought like a good base with like decent strength because it can roll from 60 to 120. Well, I figured like around 100 strength is not too bad. And then I just 6-linked it myself. And then I'm running this tincture right here, which gives me a ton of crit chance. And then diamond flask, silver flask, and amethyst flask because our chaos res is abysmal. But once we use our flask, goes up to a decent amount. Not too bad. Other than that, for my 6-link, I'm running heavy strike, behead, increased crit strikes, increased crit damage, multi-strike, and ruthless. So while mapping, I'll actually swap this out for Awakened Ancestral Call, which gives me huge area of damage basically. But while bossing, I will definitely use ruthless. And then of course, like I mentioned earlier, I am featuring the girls, so that's Vol double strike, ruthless, increased crit damage, and increased crit strikes. Other than that, for my auras, I'm running haste, determination, and precision. I've got molten shell on tap, Immortal Call, cast when damage taken, which is nice defense. Ice Golem for a little bit of accuracy and crit. Blood Rage, Mark on hit with Assassin's Mark, which is huge for a single target on bosses. All of that on life tap. And then lastly, Whirling Blades, faster attacks, and Rage for some extra rage. And then for my skill tree, it's nothing too complicated, honestly. It's just really came down to me doing research on figuring out what's good and what works. The main important thing is the Iron Will, and then you want Tribal Fury for the splash damage, and then you want a bunch of strength, some block chance, crit, life, more block. I get culling from here, some stored nodes. This life leech cluster is actually very useful. 10% instant life leech does go a long way. And then I have reservation efficiency, which is nice. Spell suppression. I come here for some more damage, accuracy, life. This is all damage basically. And then damage. And then this is actually kind of helpful to sustain mana. And then just to go into a little bit of this, I have the Light of Meaning, which each of these gives me +2 strength and +2 int. It's actually very important to build int up to 156, otherwise you can't wear Crown of Eyes. Over here I have a little Unnatural Instinct, which gives me all of these unallocated nodes, which is actually not too bad. A bunch of movement speed, a bunch of damage through the spell damage conversion, and then of course all of these are also giving me +2 attributes thanks to this overlap right here, which is actually really nice. And on my cluster jewel, I have Feed the Fury, Martial Prowess, and Feel the Flight. I have this super duper basic Watcher's Eye, which mostly just gives me flash charge when I deal critical strikes. Like I said, not at all optimal. This build does definitely have a long way to go. If I just pump a lot more Divine into the build will do phenomenal, I'm sure. And then lastly, I'll just mention the Lethal Pride Timeless Jewel. There is a Timeless Jewel calculator that I use that I found through Zizarin. Extremely helpful because it helps me point it out, like I can get this 5% strength node here, and then I have my 5% chance to deal double damage here, which is definitely helpful, and then crit multi here, which is also really nice. Endurance charge on kill, not too bad. War cry I don't use. Reduce extra damage with crit strikes, it's not too shabby. But the most important thing is the 5% increased strength. I will say though, if I were running Viper Strike, then this extra 5% increased strength is actually really nice. Other than that, there's not too much going on around this area right here for this Lethal Pride. I will mention I am getting rage. I did have this cluster here with the +7 max rage, but it's not entirely necessary. I just wanted the 1 point so I can at least build up some rage, which is definitely helpful for damage. Oh, and one more thing, I am generating frenzy charges pretty often, not too difficult to maintain through this mark mastery. So 10% chance to gain frenzy charge when I hit your marked enemy. This is my only way I'm sustaining frenzy charges at all on bosses, so it's not too bad. It's somewhat useful. So that's the character so far. Like I said before, it's still got a long ways to go, and I'd really appreciate any useful tips or advice to boost it even further while staying true to the heavy strike skill as much as possible. I'll leave you with my Shaper kill, I guess. Not too much to showcase at this point because the build hasn't reached like true endgame potential, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.